Hey guys, welcome to the weekly outlook. I want to get started. This is going to be the first week of July 2024. And of course, the best way to start is to look at the performance for my June outlook as we come to a close of June. I think it's important, as I always say, it's important to go on the record because you can then look back and say, have you been accurate? Not only have you been accurate, I think it's so important not to just make a projection, but to actually explain why something will happen. Otherwise, when you hear about stock pickers or people taking guesses, it's just a guess. If you can't explain why it would happen, anybody could take a guess, and then it's glorified gambling, and I think that is a terrible thing for people to do with their capital. I've never done that as a businessman. I've never done that as an investor. So let's just talk really quickly about reviewing our most recent projections, because that helps you understand why you're here and why you're listening to this video. If somebody has a strong record and has always qualified their opinions and given a deep explanation, probably good to listen to them. And if not, probably not. All right. So in our June stock market outlook, of course, my view was that we were going to, and this was the most important for the month, I predicted that the SPY and QQQ will rise on cooling inflation and PCE data, right? So it's not just I say up or down flip coin month, yay. Of course, I gave a deep explanation with an insider access. All insiders know that, and you can see them post frequently to my timeline. And I explained that a variety of different elements were falling rapidly, particularly it's shelter and auto insurance that you're starting to see, that you saw start to fall off, and a handful of other items, of course, which gave us a lower CPI print and ultimately a lower PCE print. And the PCE print, you can actually calculate the majority of that with the data that you get in from the month before that. So predicted that we would rise. Apple, I was bullish at 194 to start the month, and it's in the video. So if anybody wants to double check me, please double check. As I say, I think it's important to get on the record. Go take a look. It was posted June 3rd, and I made sure to include the image so you can go look for yourself rather than listen to what I'm saying here. 194, that shot to 220. That's a huge move, guys. And then bullish on semiconductors. And I went further. It's not just this big move of 243 to 279. I actually went further in qualifying that a little bit and saying, and this was just some insight from insider access. I said that the AI move is not over, right? There are going to be pauses, of course. We're not just going to move up parabolically like you see with NVIDIA, but we're in the early stages of AI. So a couple of other items, just looking back on the weekly now, not just the monthly, because we had a great week. The most recent, this is just a trade on Friday, so it's probably worth just touching back on. Microsoft ran from our entry point, so at 60 cents to $1.40. You can check the idea. 60 cents to $1.40, it's a 142% move. Cut the move after, of course. Part of the reason I cut the move, and it wasn't that I was 100% certain that the markets were going to sell off late day, but you get a move that runs 142%. You don't keep on for a re-entry because that would require the stock to fall all the way back down. And I think at that point, there's too much selling pressure. Also, something to keep in mind that I was very conscious of is that it's the end of the month. End of the month and end of the quarter, so there's always a little bit of rebalancing, which introduces some additional volatility. And of course, we had PCE data prior, so that adds to the volatility. But as you saw last week, before we take a look at the week ahead, had a lot of ideas. That was Microsoft that ran for 142%. Aegis is one that I posted. I posted the charting on Aegis. This was on the 26th. I followed up on the 29th. And so guys, if you're new following me or if you've been following for a while, you'll notice that I don't post a ton of ideas. I don't spam things out. There's not, where's my list today? Where's my list today? It's not like it's gambling. I know some people have this sort of itch. I don't know what it is. Like you need to be able to trade every day or it's not worth your time. And I joined a Discord. I want 40 trades a day. I think that's a terrible approach. I think that's like a gambler who has an issue and needs to bet on the horses or has to find a game. I lived in Las Vegas. You could see people who are itchy in the casino sportsbook area. The way that it works is that if there are opportunities, you seize them. And if there aren't opportunities that are worth the risk, if you don't have an opportunity for asymmetrical risk, you refrain. You're going to grow your capital that way. But if you're more concerned about participating than you are profiting, by all means, take 20 trades a day, make sure you've got 400 indicators on your screen and convince yourself, essentially justify your gambling. So this was on the 26th that I posted this idea, right? This was at the close on the 26th. And AGYS has done nothing but go straight up since. So that was 142% on Microsoft. And as you can see here, this was after the bell. And again, scroll my feed. On AGYS, you can see it on 26, a little bit blurry there. I don't know if we zoom it out, zoom it in, it'll help a little bit. Straight up. But again, it's on my feed. So that shot straight up, Microsoft shot straight up. Then of course you probably see a lot of insiders posting great results. And this was last week. We worked with IWM. Google was one of my top picks in the 2024 Outlook. I posted a portion of the 2024 Outlook publicly. So again, you can go back and look at that and see what some of my thoughts and ideas were for the year. Again, I like to be consistent with this and be very clear with my ideas and my projections, and kind of give a monthly and weekly and an annual outlook, because I think it's important to have that sort of track record to revert back to and say, hey, this is where we're working, and my clients also see it as well. So on the private side, it's a little bit fun. Google, one of the top picks for 2024, right? We started at 135 early in the year, 184. This is a calendar we're going to be working with. You saw we were also bullish on Amazon. That's something else I posted on X. It wasn't the same idea. I didn't post the same views that I did to Insider Access. Rodolfo is an Insider Access member, so you can see he had great results. And it was just a very, very strong week in general. So now I want to talk a little bit about this coming week and give everybody a little bit of flavoring for it. Of course, I always go in much more depth in my private work, and with Insider Access I will. But this is just something free to those of you who are trying to learn, understand the markets. It's not mandatory that you are an Insider Access member or anything else. I like to put these sort of items out so as to give everybody a bit of an understanding, to let you know what's in front of you. Because if you could just be a little bit of a better, more conscious investor, understand that it's important to take advantage of asymmetrical risk and not play this like some game or casino, you're better off for it, right? Or what I tell a lot of people is, if you can't do that and it needs to be casino style and you need X trades and you follow 50 furus who, 2 weeks ago were working in some random place, but they also include their fantasy teams with half their picks, and you've got 400 indicators, just save your money. Find something else to do to entertain yourself. There's a lot of really good video games out there these days, which I wish I had time to play. So let's look at important stock market events and data this week, and I'll give you a bit of flavoring. PMI is going to be important. We derive a lot of that. We derive a lot from the PMI numbers. Helps you get a better understanding of inflation. So that's going to be, there is some value to that, and that's of course tomorrow morning. Then Chair Powell speaks. That's always going to rock the markets to some extent. That has the opportunity. If it's muted and he doesn't say much, then there won't be much of an impact. If he says something substantive, which he often does, whether it's his intention or not, that can be a separate argument, then it will impact the markets. And the reason that this is particularly interesting is he's now armed with more information than he was during his CPI press conference, right? So that's kind of what you look for when you're watching to see who's speaking. And Chair Powell is, of course, there's no second within the Fed to Chair Powell. You want to understand, okay, did he just give a press conference yesterday after we got CPI and now he's speaking again? Okay, something to keep an eye on. Maybe he says something very interesting, but there shouldn't be much of a change because he doesn't have any new information, right? So you look at it that way. In this case, he has a lot of new information. He's got an additional jobs report, and more importantly, he has the PCE data that just came in last week. And this now begs the question, that is an inflation report, right? Personal consumption expenditures is an important report, and Chair Powell has that in hand. At the very least, if it's raised, he has to acknowledge that it is a very positive step in the right direction for inflation. But we'll see. Job openings, of course, speaks to the economy, and we've been seeing that contract, which is one of the Fed's mandates, of course, to preserve maximal employment. So as the job market loosens, we get closer to cuts, which is bullish at this point. Then we have some other Fed speakers. ADP is an interesting data point for jobs because the non-farm data, the official U.S. employment report, has become so extremely unreliable and inconsistent with constant revisions that what happens is you start to place more importance on the ADP employment data because it's just automated. And again, initial jobless claims on the week-to-week basis. There's a little bit of noise here in this number because there's some seasonality to it. And then, of course, as we said, ISM, PMI, all important. Fed's minutes for FOMC meeting, I think that it reiterates what we already know. There can sometimes be some important information there. And then, of course, after the holiday, we have the U.S. employment report and employment rate. That's always important, and the markets do react. But again, I will stress that this has been extremely, extremely inconsistent, unreliable, and inaccurate. And that's not an opinion. You can see that based on the revisions. If it was accurate, then you would not have large-scale revisions. If you consistently have large-scale revisions, that means the initial reports were not accurate, and that is what's been happening. We see a rising employment rate. We were at 3.8, 3.9, now we're at 4.0. So these are some important things to keep an eye on this week. Of course, we have the holiday. It's going to be on the 4th for Independence Day. That's always a great holiday, and then we're back on Friday to close out the week. So that gives you a flavoring to what to look forward to. I will post ideas when I see such that there's a viable opportunity. Obviously, I'm always posting more ideas within Discord, but I try to have public ideas to put out when I think there's a viable opportunity. And as I mentioned, you could see the ideas that I do publish are very high quality. I'm not 100%, nobody is, but I think I have likely one of the best track records around, and you can scroll my feed to see that. You don't have to take my word. Please don't, in fact. Scroll my feed, look at my ideas, look at the breakdowns that I provide. This is August. The last time I posted charts was a week before on Costco, and Costco tanked, and I called for Costco to fall, and I noted that retail sales data was cooling. Not Costco in specific, but the sector was cooling. And here with August, and I corrected, the ticker's actually AGYS. So that's right, I did correct. I think over here, somewhere there was a typo. But I will post them as they present. That is the outlook for this week. I hope that gives everybody a little bit of flavoring, some of the things to expect, particularly with the calendar, when there's a little bit of volatility. I also posted this to my feed. Keep in mind, this is all Eastern Standard Time, so you might see shakeups in the market as these events unfold. Something to keep an eye on. There's a little bit of volatility. Maybe it helps you pay a little bit more attention to your position, understand the timing of your positions and why the markets are moving. If that happens at the very least and you weren't expecting it, then this has helped you understand the markets better, become a better trader. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. I hope that helps. We will have more to come.